Hello and welcome once again. I'm your host, Sarah Mock, and today we're tackling a big topic, especially given the moment and the season that we're in right now, the topic of fertilizer decision making. So many farmers are feeling the tight margins, they're feeling volatility across supply chains, input costs, they're feeling pressures around weather and labor. And the question that a lot of farmers are asking or being forced to ask is, where can I make some cuts? Where can I save some money? And to help us tackle this question this year, especially around that fertilizer question, and maybe even help us think a little differently there around that core question, we're joined today by Jason Haegele, Marketing and Innovations Manager at ICL. Jason, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm glad to be here.
I wonder if we could just start. I imagine you get a decent amount of face time with farmers. What are you hearing from farmers in terms of just managing this fertilizer question this year?
It's a great question. Fertilizers are a hot topic in 2026, and input prices are up across the board, not just fertilizer, but diesel fuel and crop protection chemistry. All of those things that farmers need to have a successful year are more expensive than what they have been in the past. But I think we have a unique set of situations this year where input prices are high and commodity prices are low. This isn't the first time we've seen high fertilizer prices. Immediately after COVID, we saw high fertilizer prices, but luckily at that time, crop prices, commodity prices were also high, so farmers were able to still be profitable in what they produced. And we're in a different year, different situation, and profit margins are going to be a lot tighter this year. Particularly after the start of the Middle East war and into February, we've seen fertilizer prices that have really skyrocketed across all of the main commodity fertilizers. But nitrogen fertilizer especially has been especially hard hit. Urea and other nitrogen fertilizers, which are causing farmers to potentially think differently about how they allocate their limited fertilizer budget for 2026.
When those prices go up, I imagine the first place that farmers go to is just how can I use less? Where can I cut back? Where can I cut down on my pounds per acre? In your mind, is that the main way? Is that the best way that farmers should be thinking about this question?
Yeah, that's always the immediate response is, can I cut back? Can I apply less fertilizer? And I think in some situations that can work out in the short term, particularly for farmers who are growing crops in more fertile regions of the United States that have high background fertility, high organic matter. But for other farmers that may be more limited in the amount of fertility that's been built up over time or fertility that naturally occurs in their soils, it could be more of a stressful decision. I think we talk a lot about nutrient use efficiency, but that becomes really important in 2026. What are the steps, the decisions that we can make to make all of our nutrients, not just nitrogen, but phosphorus, potassium, micronutrients, sulfur as well? How can we make those nutrients more efficient and do more with every pound of nutrients that we choose to invest in?
It feels like a real year to think about optimizing and not just maximizing. I think in some years, fertilizer can seem like an affordable insurance policy, apply a little extra just to make sure it's there so that you don't lose the top end of your crop. But it seems like this is, given the price situation, it's really a year to think about optimization and just really getting the most out of every pound, every application. In your mind, what are the levers that farmers have to think maybe a little differently about optimizing instead of maximizing their fertilizer applications?
Yeah. So a few things that come to mind for me are, first of all, if we're going to focus on one nutrient, like cutting back on nitrogen, that's fine, but what are some of the other nutrients that we can be thinking about how we can optimize those to make that limited amount of nitrogen even more efficient? So with nitrogen specifically, sulfur often comes to mind as a nutrient that's really key to maximizing the efficiency of the nitrogen that we do apply. And there's multiple ways to do that through soil applied sulfur, like a ICL's polysulfate product, or liquid forms of sulfur that farmers may be accustomed to side dressing with, but then also other nutrients, micronutrients especially, that we may be applying in season at very low efficient rates to again maximize that plant's physiological efficiency and how it takes advantage of the limited nitrogen that it has access to. The other thing that I think about is, every farmer is going to make, or at least most farmers are going to make some type of crop protection investment and application during the season, or potentially multiple crop protection applications with herbicides, insecticides, and fungicides. So how do we take advantage of those pre-planned application passes across the field to essentially get a free ride for a very efficient, low use rate fertility product, nutrition product, whether that be foliar potassium, micronutrients, or other nutrients that we can apply in season during those pre-planned crop protection passes.
I'm curious too, what it comes to your mind as you're talking to farmers about these levers, thinking about their application rates maybe a little bit more carefully, sharpening pencils a little bit this year around fertilizer? What are some mistakes or misconceptions that you hear farmers making as they think about strategizing in times like this?
I think one of the common mistakes is to just completely eliminate a traditional application of a soil applied nutrient like phosphorus or potassium with the assumption that there's enough fertility in the soil based on previous applications of those nutrients or nutrients that are already present just naturally in the soil. And while that nutrition may be there, the plant can still experience short-term deficiencies throughout the season that ultimately limit yield and profitability for the farmer. So the mistake is just completely forgetting about fertility and instead thinking about how we can supplement with foliar applications, side dress applications, or lower cost, very efficient types of applications that bridge some of those temporary gaps that might be occurring throughout the season.
I more than usual, I hear farmers talking about things like the nutrients in the bank, the nutrients in the soil. I think soil sampling is obviously one of the first tools to just understand what levels of nutrients exist in the soil right now. But in terms of other kinds of tools and strategies that farmers can use to think about how they should be applying or what kind of applications they should be considering, what's on your mind in terms of tools that are available for that?
With the advances in technology and innovation, there are many tools that farmers have at their disposal before the season or during the season to monitor the nutrient status of the soil or the plant to make these precise decisions on what to or what not to apply. And so I think soil sampling, while it's a traditional approach, is table stakes before you can make a decision about potentially cutting or reducing phosphorus or potassium as an example. You need to know what's present in the soil. And then I think once we're into the season, tissue sampling or other forms of in-season management, remote sensing as one example, are ways that farmers can quickly and at a relatively low cost get an understanding of how that crop is faring and whether in-season applications of any of the nutrients are justified to help you maximize the yield and then ultimately the profitability of that crop.
So to really put some boots on the ground, say I was a farmer and I am making a decision this week or next week about fertilization. What are three things that you would say I should look really closely at or think about very specifically as I plan to make that decision?
The three things that come to mind for me are really around the idea of mapping out a nutrient use efficiency plan for the remainder of 2026. And so we're in the spring, crop planting has occurred or will soon be occurring across most of the United States. So the next opportunity that a lot of farmers will have to potentially make a nutrient application is a side dress application or top dress application if they're in that type of management system. So that's an opportunity to think about how we can get the most out of the nitrogen that we're applying, but also think about potentially phosphorus sources, sulfur sources, other nutrients that might fit into that side dress application or top dress application window. I think the second decision to make is a little bit further into the season, and that's the foliar application decision. So again, many farmers will be making a crop protection application. So what are some compatible nutrient sources, whether that be micronutrients, foliar potassium, or others that can get that free ride in the tank mix across the field to help address some of the nutrient deficiencies that may be occurring due to cutbacks in other soil applied nutrients. And then lastly, thinking ahead to fall, a traditional application window for many farmers to apply phosphorus and potassium. I believe that fertilizer prices will continue to increase throughout the year just based on trends that have been occurring over time, even before the Mideast war, and the future is uncertain as to what might happen next in that region of the world. So farmers need to be working with their local consultant, retailer, their trusted advisor to really understand what decisions, purchasing decisions they need to think about making now to anticipate further increases in fertilizer prices that might come later in 2026.
I'm curious related to that. We're getting into the part of the season where weather drives everything. Weather drives certainly the markets, but also a lot of farmer decision making. We're looking at the potential for a super El Nino, which could mean a wet growing season, but also situations where there's flash droughts. Farmers that I've talked to are already seeing a lot of weed pressure. People are very cognizant of disease and insects too. As you're looking ahead to the possible conditions we might see this season, if you end up with some flooding, if you end up with some drought, does that change the way you think about nutrient planning for the rest of the year?
Absolutely. I think weather will always throw us a curveball, and a focus on nutrient use efficiency and in particular in-season management allows us the flexibility to adjust and overcome those weather circumstances or market circumstances that we may not have anticipated ahead of time. And so as I think about traditional agronomy, where we applied all of the nutrition up front, we're locked into that investment. But with in-season management, whether that's side dressing, top dressing, or foliar applications, we have that ability to make last-minute adjustments and either make further investments in the crop with nutrition that's needed to replace nutrients that may have been lost due to heavy rainfall, or maybe take advantage of an increase in commodity prices that justifies further investment in the crop, or on the flip side of the coin, if we get into a drought, then we may decide to cut back and hold back on some of those nutrient applications just because we know that ultimately the weather and the lack of water will be the greatest bottleneck to yield and profitability.
So, as farmers are thinking about all the various pressures that they might face going into this season, what kind of products are coming out of ICL that maybe farmers should be thinking about or taking a look at as they navigate this uncertain season?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for many farmers, ICL is an unknown or unfamiliar name, but ICL is not a new company. ICL has been around for over 100 years and is actually one of the largest fertilizer companies, especially fertilizer companies globally. Our product portfolio is the largest product portfolio of any fertilizer company in the world. We range from commodity phosphates and potash fertilizer all the way through specialty foliar products and biologicals, biostimulants, controlled release fertilizers, and liquids. So we have a broad range of solutions to offer to U.S. retailers and U.S. farmers to fit into all these different cropping systems and different scenarios that a farmer might anticipate or encounter during the season. Some of the key products that I would highlight are polysulfate, which is a granular fertilizer that is a gradual sustained release of sulfur, calcium, potassium, and magnesium. So you're thinking about improving nitrogen use efficiency and striking the right balance between nitrogen and sulfur. Polysulfate's a great option for farmers to consider. We have a broad range of foliar products, not just foliar, phosphorus, and potassium fertilizers, but also micronutrients that are formulated with biostimulant components to help you maximize the efficiency of uptake and utilization efficiency in the plant. And then lastly, we have a broad range of water-soluble fertilizers. One great example is a product called PEC acid that in itself contains phosphorus and potassium, but what makes PEC acid unique is that it is an acid-forming fertilizer. So when it's applied to the soil, it actually helps to release nutrients that are already in the soil, not just phosphorus, but many of the micronutrients that become more available at lower pHs.
Well, and for farmers who are already thinking about a sophisticated crop nutrient management plan, or who are maybe have not thought about this a lot, but would like to learn more, would like to understand more about these products. You already mentioned, obviously, local retailers and trusted advisors are going to be a big part of that conversation. But is there other places where you'd recommend them go to learn more about products and options and tools that might be available to them to help optimize for their specific geography and weather and conditions?
Yeah, certainly. So as you mentioned, working through your local advisor, it could be a retailer or other crop advisor in the local areas is always the first step. And ICL products are available through a broad range of retailers across the United States and North America. But if a farmer is interested in learning more about ICL and the products that we offer, I would encourage them to visit the ICL Growing Solutions US website or connect with us on Facebook or LinkedIn. On our website and through social media, we offer a broad range of trial results that demonstrate the performance of our products, but also just a broad range of agronomic information that challenges all of us to think differently about how we can make nutrients more efficient.
Maybe just one last question. I feel like so much of this is a conversation about just finding the right plan for you, the right strategy for your specific conditions, for your budget, for your P&L and how you manage your farm. Any parting words of wisdom in terms of folks thinking about finding the right balance of nutrients and optimizing nutrient efficiency and getting a productive and profitable crop, but also not going broke on fertilizer in the meantime?
Well, that's a big question. I think nutrient use efficiency is a term that gets bantered around a lot, and it's a direction that the industry has been moving in for a number of years. But in my opinion, 2026 is really the year that highlights the need to make a large shift towards more efficient use of crop nutrients. not just nitrogen, but all nutrients. It's important for the environment, it's important for sustainability, and it's important for farmer economics and profitability as well. That being said, all agronomy is local, and so there's no one single recommendation that's going to fit every geography across the United States, every crop, every soil type, and really that comes back to the importance of a farmer partnering with a trusted local advisor to really understand their unique constraints, opportunities, and objectives to craft a nutrient use efficiency plan that is going to be profitable and productive over the long term for that individual farmer.
Well, Jason, thank you so much for joining us. This has been an awesome conversation, and we will hopefully see you again.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.